This is TCU wide receiver Jack Bech.
And I believe I just watched one of the better route runners in the draft class. He wins from outside and inside in a variety of routes, a lot of underneath, a lot of intermediate routes. He's pretty agile for a big guy. And I think that it makes him a high potential for lots of volume in the NFL. You're not going to see a blazer down the field. He's not going to fit in every single offense. I am nervous about the speed, but the route running ability, the reliable hands, I do think that makes him a pretty comfortable second round pick.
6'1", 214 pounds. We're not going to get a 40 or 10-yard split at the time of this video, but he did do other athletic tests in terms of a 61st percentile shuttle, 74th percentile three cone, 34th percentile vert, and a 69th percentile broad jump. He actually began his career at LSU for his first two seasons. We'll definitely put a bookmark in that and return to it after having 3 basketball state titles in high school.
Ooh.
To me, Hayden, if you give him a free release, your corner is going to be in a world of hurt because he is so good at manipulating defensive backs with his eyes and with his feet. He gets vertical out of the slot versus Stanford, sells that corner to open up the middle of the field, and then boom, back to the post for 50 yards. There is no fat to his game. And then if you try to play closer on like 3rd and 5, he is super physical on those 5-yard out routes, the slant stem, then strong outside hand to throw you on the inside. And we're going to break it out just beyond the sticks to convert a first down.
Yeah, he used the same word, like manipulation in his routes. Like if he's trying to win an out route, he's going to work inside, create as much separation as he can. So when he finally does make his move, there's enough room to operate. So you see that in all these different routes. And I do think there's enough physicality where even though he's not the fastest guy on those like slant routes where you got to create some quick separation, I do think that he can actually get open underneath. And I think the thing that was shocking to me in this last season, we saw it a lot, was he's pretty nimble after the catch. And like he makes his moves pretty suddenly after he catches the ball. Like you see it, like it almost reminded me of Travis Kelce sometimes where he catches the ball and spins out the other way. You see a little bit of that from Jack Bech. So I didn't see a lot of downfield routes in terms of just winning with raw speed. But like you did say, like some of those post routes, some of those big corner routes, he does against like quarters coverage. He can figure out which guy he needs to be baiting before he breaking inside. So he's made the most out of, I think, out of his athleticism, which is not terrible athleticism. It's more than just fine for what he's going to be doing in the NFL. I think it puts a cap on his ceiling, but he definitely has made the most out of what type of player he can be.
So I think where we're going to right now is to ask the question, where would you play him? Because even during his college career, his college coaches might not have agreed on that. Like just looking at his best statistical season, which by the way, it was only one good statistical year in college.
Right.
This past year with the TCU Horned Frogs, 62 catches, just over 1,000 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Prior to that, he had about 70 catches for 800-ish yards and 4 touchdowns to his resume. Again, if we just take 2024, he only played 27% of his snaps out of the slot, but that was much higher the previous years, around 80%. And in fact, as a freshman at LSU, he played 129 inline or F tight end snaps, 268 snaps then out of the slot, and then just 31 out wide. So again, I'll ask, where would you want to play him in the NFL?
I think he can play outside. My dream is that he's a power slot. I think we have to be realistic with how many offenses are using that power slot. But if there is a team that has that job opening, I think that's where he would be. And actually, one of my comps for him is Juju Smith-Schuster, who's almost got the same exact height and weight. And he was never a speedster, but he was a good route runner in his prime before his legs gave out. And he could play a little bit outside, but he was definitely best in the slot. It had some big productive years. But it was funny that you brought up the early career stuff with LSU, because when I was looking through the box scores back in 2021, you're looking at the LSU box scores. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas at the very bottom of the receiving. Jack Bech is leading that team over Neighbors and Brian Thomas. And when I went back to the film, I was like, am I watching the right guy? Because he was playing tight end. He's like a big slot tight end.
Wearing number 80.
I was like, am I watching the same guy? And then you go back to 2024 where he's just winning with route running on the perimeter. I was like, what the hell even is this? So I think power slot would be my ideal, but maybe he can play outside.
I would want to play him in the slot because he's really a weapon there. Like, I don't want to place him in one spot on the outside and just say, hey, go win, snap after snap. Like, he will be bigger and more physical than many nickel corners in the league. He will be faster, smoother, and more savvy than many of the safeties he'll match up in the slot. And don't even try to work it with a linebacker because, again, he'll just out athlete you, I think,
Mhm.
at that spot. He made a ton of catches, I thought, through contact when, especially zone or working in that off coverage, when his back gets turned to the defensive back in order to have a bigger strike zone for his quarterback. And just as he's catching the football, the defender like drives through his back or his waist and he still holds on to it. And again, that feel for space that he has, a feel for zone, when to break his route 1 yard short or run it 1 yard further to open this window for his quarterback, that makes him very, very friendly. And look, even when I say that, like there's no doubt he had wins on the outside, but to me, his best stuff was when he was more condensed, working at the very least inside the numbers. And I wouldn't
Mhm.
be totally shocked when we're talking this power slot stuff and looking back at his history if a team, just from a pure team building standpoint, is deciding, okay, do we want to lean more in 12 personnel stuff, or do we want someone like Jack Bech to work as our primary slot and still work in 11 personnel, and
Mhm.
they'll have to defend us with more defensive backs on the field, but he still wins in almost that tight end wide receiver hybrid areas of the field.
Yeah, I'm sure like the offense you're thinking about with this is like, what would McVay do with this guy? I
Yeah,
think a lot of the
Shanahan
comps.
McVay over and
Yeah,
over and over again. I mean, again,
exactly.
the split flow action that he had, and then just
Yeah,
getting detached or attached to the end of the line of scrimmage.
yeah.
I mean, that's all I could think about.
Yeah, I've seen the comps like Puka Nakua is a comp, and I don't think that's like that crazy. Now there's some big differences there. Puka Nakua by the sideline is unbelievable, and also Puka Nakua in the screen game is fantastic. And then even at TCU, he had all that production over 1,000 yards. Was not using the screen game whatsoever. So I think that comp is too rich. But stylistically, how you would use them, it's like that exact kind of Robert Woods, Cooper Cup, Puka Nakua, that type of player is where I think he's going to be. Now, that's like what half the league has that as an option, so he's not going to be a fit for everybody. But I think we see him very similarly.
I mean, the highest I think I would go with him is like Chris Godwin, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
He's
Stylistically,
almost
it's right there.
identical size. We don't know what the 40 time is, but their other athletic tests are quite similar. I'll add that
Yeah.
Besh posted 19 uh, bench press reps, which
Dog.
strong man out there. And again, I don't want to just say he's going to be middle of the field and that's it. Again, he did have outside corner wins. I just don't know if I think that that is translatable. It just felt like it was much easier to cover him in man as an outside player than it
Mhm.
is to afford him these two-way goes, all this extra space that he has to work with and to manipulate. And again, I just believe you'll get more off coverage stuff. And that's when his route manipulation,
Yep.
again, the timing of his routes with his eyes and his feet to force a corner's feet or hips or whatever in opposite directions, and then boom, he's moving uh, and breaking his route. It's a really fun player to
Mhm.
watch. And again, I even wonder if teams are going to stack him in the same area as someone like Harold Fannin on their draft board.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say like compared like my Amika Abuka notes, like very similar. If you're writing the notes
Yeah.
section, very similar. He's just like a tier below that to me, but stylistically, it's slot physical slot wide receiver, this tight end that's gonna be a motion guy like Fannin. It's like these guys are all battling for the same amount of snaps.
Then the big question is, if he goes to a team, we know the vast majority of them play three wide receiver sets, but is he going to be able to earn the spot in two wide receiver sets? And I think that's almost impossible for us to answer
Yeah.
here before the draft
Yeah.
because it might be based on the depth chart that is ahead of him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the other thing, transition wise for him is just he's not facing the most elite corners on tape too. I know he had a great Senior Bowl week, which is a whole other story that you guys should go read and catch up on. But he at least showed out there, which is a higher level of competition than what he was seeing in and out. Which is, I think, to me, the difference with Emeka is just he's always facing the top guys in that conference, and he played well. Where I think you have to kind of play that transition game with Jack here.
If he is an outside inside player, I know this is going to seem like a shot at him, but I could see a team viewing him like the Buffalo Bills view Josh Palmer, just giving him a contract and be like this
Mhm.
outside inside, more powerful player on top of it. Just a few stats, lots to love. Just one drop this past year. Again, that definitely shows up with how strong his hands are. A 61% contested catch rate over his entire college career, just 5.5 yards per reception after the catch, I should say, which is 25th in this class. But again, if you go back and look at LSU when it was a whole bunch of split flow action and he was basically getting the Evan Ingram routes for them, then he was able to chew up, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 yards after the catch there. But yeah, it's so different. Like a 13.3 average depth of target this past year, when before every single other season, it was around 8 to 8.5 to
Yep.
8.9 yards.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, there is tape out there of him doing whatever a team envisions. And I think many of them will enjoy that, will like that. And he's still just 22, despite playing 4 years and being at a second school.
Yeah, in my notes, I just have based off his landing spot, this guy can be a high target guy just because where he's going to be utilized, which you can just be peppered with looks there. He's not going to be the number one receiver based off of drawing coverages and that. But if he goes to the right offense, I do think this guy's reliable enough, has just enough agility, definitely enough physicality to get absolutely peppered with targets. So I can't wait for the draft. I think it's going to be a second round pick, not even a third round pick. And to me, like this class where it's strongest at is like not the elite wide receivers, but we've talked about a plenty of round two type of guys on this channel already that like kind of have us fired up. So like, you're not getting elite wide receiver ones in fantasy, but I think a couple of these guys are going to be like flex options for us in the future.
I use the term role player glowingly. And if he goes to a team with a good quarterback and the right play caller, they can elevate a role player like this
Yep.
to, 120 targets and
Yep.
75 to 80 plus catches per game or per season, if not more than that.
Hmm.
So you want him in a good situation and good things are going to happen. If you want to compare him to the rest of the prospects in this class, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out the rest of the channel. We have so many of these prospect profiles. If you're not watching one next, what are you doing? See you there.